Forget everything you were taught in school. They told you the Silk Road was a peaceful path for merchants carrying fine fabrics and spices. They painted a picture of golden sunsets and camel caravans. They lied. In 1994, I stood in the heart of the Taklamakan Desert, a name that literally translates to the place of no return. I was there with a local guide named Arslan, a man whose face was as weathered as the ruins we were hunting. He grabbed my arm as the wind began to howl, and he whispered something that has haunted me for 30 years. The sand doesn't just hide bodies, kid. It hides the things that killed them. At the time, I thought he was just trying to spook a young traveler. But then, he led me to a shallow depression in the red earth. Protruding from the sand was a piece of wood. We started digging with our bare hands, the heat searing our skin, until we saw her. They call her the Witch of Loulan. She was 4,000 years old, yet her eyelashes were still intact. Her skin was preserved like fine leather. But here's the thing that made my blood run cold. She wasn't Chinese. She had high cheekbones, a sharp nose, and flowing blonde hair. She was European. What was a woman from the West doing in the middle of a desert in western China 4 millennia ago? History says this shouldn't be possible. If you're already wondering how deep this rabbit hole goes, do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell. We are about to uncover things the history books are too afraid to print, and you don't want to miss the next chapter of this investigation. As I stared into the witch's hollow eyes, Arslan pointed to a small, rotted leather pouch buried beside her. Inside was a coarse, black powder. Now, according to every textbook on Earth, black powder wasn't invented for another 800 years. Yet here it was, resting against the hip of a woman who died before the pyramids of Giza were even finished. This wasn't a trade route for silk. It was a corridor for the world's first biological and chemical superweapons. While the world thinks these merchants were trading embroidery, they were actually smuggling the ingredients for total annihilation. I remember asking Arslan, why isn't this in the museums? Why is she still out here? He looked around nervously, his eyes darting to the horizon as if someone or something was watching us from the dunes. Because, he said, his voice trembling, when you find out how the Roman Empire actually fell, you realize that our modern world is built on a foundation of plague and fire. And once people know the truth, they start asking questions that the people in power can't answer. The air suddenly felt heavy. It wasn't just the heat. It was the realization that the Silk Road was the world's first biological war zone. One sneeze in a crowded market in Samarkand didn't just ruin a deal. It triggered a chain reaction that wiped out entire bloodlines from Beijing to Rome. We were standing on a graveyard of millions, and the sand was starting to sing. If you've never heard the singing sands, let me tell you, it doesn't sound like music. It sounds like 10,000 people screaming at once. The wind didn't just howl anymore. It hummed a low, vibrating frequency that made my fillings ache. Every step we took felt like we were walking on the skin of a giant, sleeping beast. I gripped the bronze cylinder, the fire lance, so hard my knuckles turned white. It was heavy, far heavier than any bronze should be, and it stayed cold, unnervingly cold, despite the 110-degree heat. We were 3 days into the deep desert when Malik, our lead tracker, simply ceased to exist. 1 minute, he was 20 paces ahead of us, his silhouette sharp against the shimmering horizon. I looked down to adjust my canteen, and when I looked up, the horizon was empty. Nobody. No struggle. And most terrifying of all, no footprints. It was as if the sky had reached down and plucked him from the earth. Arslan dropped to his knees, not to pray, but to press his ear to the sand. He turned to me, his face pale behind his scarf, and whispered, "The dunes are hungry today. They've taken the scout to pay for the secret you're carrying." I didn't want to believe in desert folklore, but standing there in that vast golden silence, science felt very far away. I opened the end of the bronze cylinder just a fraction, and a smell hit me, not of gunpowder, but of something sweet and decaying. It was the scent of the Black Death, preserved in a vacuum for centuries. This weapon wasn't just designed to pierce armor, It was designed to shatter empires from the inside out. It was a pressurized delivery system for a prehistoric pathogen. If you're sitting there thinking this sounds like a movie, I promise you, the reality is much darker. If you're enjoying this journey into the unknown, take a second to hit that like button. It helps me bring these hidden histories to light, and it ensures that stories like Malik's aren't forgotten in the shifting sands. We pushed on, driven by a cocktail of adrenaline and pure, unadulterated fear. By the fifth night, the hallucinations started. I saw Roman legionnaires marching through the heat haze, their brass shields reflecting a sun that had set hours ago. I saw cities made of glass rising from the salt flats. Arslan grabbed my shoulder, his grip like a vice. "Don't look at the cities," he warned. "They are the ghosts of the kingdoms the Silk Road swallowed. They want you to join them." That's when we found the second artifact. It wasn't buried. It sat atop a pristine dune, as if someone had just placed it there. It was a Roman coin, a gold aureus from the reign of Marcus Aurelius. It looked brand new, as if it had just been minted. But next to it was something that made me drop to my knees. A small, modern plastic digital watch. The screen was cracked, but the time was blinking. 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock. My heart hammered against my ribs. We were in a place where time didn't just bend, it broke. The Silk Road wasn't just a path across geography. It was a bridge across eras. Those merchants weren't just trading silk. They were trading pieces of the future and the past. I looked at Arslan, and for the first time, I saw that he wasn't afraid of the desert. He was afraid of me. He was afraid of what I would do once I realized that the bronze cylinder wasn't a weapon I had found. It was a weapon I was meant to return. If you found a doorway to another time in the middle of a wasteland, knowing you might never come back, would you step through it? Type "step through" or "stay back" in the comments right now. I want to see how many of you have that explorer's spirit. Arslan didn't say a word as he drew a jagged line in the sand between us. He wasn't just a guide, he was a gatekeeper, and I was holding the key to a door that should have stayed locked. The digital watch kept blinking. 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock. A rhythmic pulse that matched the thumping in my ears. I realized then that the Silk Road wasn't a path of progress. It was a circulatory system for the planet's most dangerous ideas. Every few centuries, a merchant like me would stumble upon a relic, a fire lance or a bag of forbidden powder, and carry it back into the civilized world to reset the clock. I looked at the bronze cylinder in my hand and felt a sudden, sharp vibration. It wasn't cold anymore. It was burning. The symbols on the side began to glow with a faint, sickly green light, reflecting in Arslan's wide, terrified eyes. "You don't understand," he gasped, backing away into the shadows of the dunes. "You think you're an explorer finding history, but you're just the delivery boy. That cylinder, it's not an artifact, it's a seed." I felt a wave of nausea hit me. The sweet, decaying scent from earlier was filling my lungs, making my head spin. I saw images of the modern world, skyscrapers, glowing screens, crowded subways, and then I saw them all dissolving into the same red sand we were standing on. The Silk Road didn't end in Rome or Beijing. It ends with us. If you want more of these forbidden deep dives into the shadows of our past, make sure you've subscribed and hit that like button. It's the only way to make sure these stories don't get buried again. Arslan turned and ran into the darkness, leaving me alone with the singing sands and the glowing weapon. I realized I had a choice. I could bury this thing back where I found it and hope the desert would keep it secret for another 1,000 years. Or I could take it back to the lab, claim my fame, and potentially end the world. My hand was shaking as I reached for my shovel. I looked up at the stars, the same stars those Roman legionnaires and European witches saw before they vanished, and I wondered if they faced the same choice. I'm back in the city now. My office is quiet, and the bronze cylinder sits in a lead-lined safe behind me. Every night, I hear a faint humming coming through the heavy metal door. It sounds like a sneeze. It sounds like a whisper. It sounds like the end. So here is the question I want to leave you with today. The one I want you to debate in the comments below. Is the pursuit of truth and scientific progress worth the risk of our total extinction? If knowing the real history means releasing the shadows that destroyed our ancestors, would you rather live in the dark? Let's start a conversation in the comments. I'll be down there replying to your takes. Don't forget to share this video with someone who thinks they know everything about history. Let's see if we can change their mind. Until next time, keep your eyes on the horizon.